I thought it would make a very good point of interest to describe the way that defamation of character about President Kennedy served to create a class issue when it came to Playboy analysis of the liberal era during the AIDS attack. This came out in December of 1963 after JFK was assassinated and has pictures of the Cayes on and speaks to his legacy. But one point of interest in particular comes to my attention, which is the way that King is bisected, just as Kennedy is bisected on the humanist first issue with Robert Anton Wilson. You can't see it very well, but there's an image over here of a woman in mourning, actually, which is actually two women in mourning and a cameraman. And these lines and bisections are particularly curious because they seem to signify a punishment for adultery. And the lines and wires that are used in these signifiers also appear, but not bisecting anybody, on the back of the Beatles' revolver. So, you know, the legacy of the Beatles was to stir up the sexual revolution. They glorified abandonment with such things as she's leaving home. When the suit and tie gentry of the civil rights movement were gunned down, they were replaced, no thanks to the drug mania from England, which came with their opium war for the resistance. Tune in, turn on, drop out, was to upload hair, a reckless abandonment as a form of protest. And of course, we now know that biblical scholars were behind this idea because they were setting up the AIDS attack. A Jewish woman who took my father from my mother, possibly by arrangement with my mother, lived at a place called 1717 Murder Street, something like murder. 1717 codified for two virgins, and named Penny, which is significant in Pennsylvania and with the Beatles. And she, when they divorced, she became a Jewish lesbian and took the check for my father's Grand Torino from out of his hands, which was court ordered, and tore it up and said, "What are you going to do about it?" My father was looking for some kind of solace in the community and was enlisted on his deathbed and blaming me for the way that he was murdered. It was just something that he was led to by the solace of the community of the people who actually did it, and by my confusion. Penny had taken me to her. She used to have us, bathe in the nude with her and Ryland. Under her instructions, this was done. And she took me, insisted on taking me to her over the objections of the mayor that children shouldn't be taken, and cautioned me that strange men might ask me to hold their peeners in the bathroom. Okay, so obviously she knew about King Crimson because that was what was going to come with Michael Reagan's favorite scene and so on. But the issue was diversion. A deaf psychologist asked me, why did I go to Mount Desert Island? I said, I went to Mount Desert Island to follow the Lear. And he was skeptical because in pet political psychology, everything boils down to the nature of reality being a significant social sex nibble. Everything is sex nibble. You could topple a whole domino chain around the NAACP's religious dogma that the white is just after sex and so forth, while they carnalize the white children that they capture to make films and help in the extermination process. You have this whole tumbling dice of sex snivelry going on, and obsession, lock in, stare, after literally forcing the child to loosen their morals as a requisite for survival. And the sex snivel is the nature of reality. It's so powerful that under its glare, virginity proves rape. I kid you not. That's what they said. Sexual restraint proved the urge or something. And they made this out to justify raping Circe, my deaf advocate, castrate me, and so forth, over a virgin. This was their psychopathy writ large. I saw I was following the leer because it was premeditated. It was in the atmosphere. They're going leer, leer, leer. It was like a fourth time hissing. And was palpable. Was I wrong? It turns out they slipped me a manuscript by Greg Carl, which read, "The persona is subjected to successive degradations of the X motive and then subsumed into a larger structure dominated by its adversary." This is coming from Central Catholic. The persona is subsumed. In other words, the created story about the deaf person who is in confusion, the persona that they're using for Hollywood, is subjected to successive degradations of the X motive and then subsumed into a larger structure dominated by its adversary. That's in their bulletin. The FBI was like, "No, we can't read that. We're not allowed to read that. No, put that away. You were up there because you wanted sex." In other words, they had scripted the whole thing, and I proved that it was premeditated. I proved that I was following the leer. And the more you follow it, the more you get into the gross premeditations of the carnal hatchet job. In fact, Pitt's worship of the sex snivel is the nature of political reality in America so profound that even after AIDS morphed by these people into COVID, they were still, we will do what Simon says, snivel, snivel, snivel about, snivel about, snivel, snivel, and that's the nature of reality. And this is where it is. That's what the mentality is. And that's how I know the whole thing was a hatchet job from beginning to end, because it's obvious.